G'day everybody and welcome to 10 and 1's coverage of Super Bowl 44, one of the great days in sport around the world, the biggest day of sport in the United States. We've had some fantastic days here the last couple of years and I think we're in for an absolute beauty today. One of the great stories in the New Orleans Saints, given where they were, that city, a couple of years ago. And of course the powerhouse, the Indianapolis Colts, two freewheeling offences. This could be a game to remember for quite some time. We've got about half an hour before kick-off. There's much to get through, and to help you do all of that, joining me in the host seat is a guru of the sport, lived his life following American sport, knows everything there is to know about the NFL. His name's Ed White, and it wouldn't be Super Bowl day without you, Ed White, eh?
Andy, it's great to be back. 9th year, I believe, for me, which is pretty remarkable. But look, we had a team last year, Arizona, that was in its first ever Super Bowl. They gave us a great game. New Orleans in its first ever Super Bowl. Let's hope they can do the same.
There's just an extra layer almost of the Cinderella story with New Orleans that even Arizona didn't have last year. We'll get to that in a minute. Steve Carfino joins us. You're going to be seeing a lot of him on One in the months and years to come. MVP, a new show that you're going to be hosting on 1HD. Steve, it's great to have you on the team, and welcome to Super Bowl 44.
Oh, thank you very much. You know, it's a great honor to come back to 10. I started out at 10 with Billy Woods and come back and seeing the boys there. A lot of people that I worked with, the producers and the directors, are now really, you know, the big wigs calling the big shots for Channel 10 now. So I was going there looking for a job. I was like, hey, man, how you been? How the kids?
Yeah, Dave Hughes sitting alongside you. We'll get to you in a minute, Hughesy, but you would, a storied basketball career, we all know about that. You would have met a lot of blokes on your journey who have come and say, yeah, I played a bit of high school basketball in the time, trying to impress themselves upon you. Did you play any junior football at any stage of your life?
Yeah, I did. You know, I feel a lot like those people now, you know, come up and saying, oh, Steve, you know, like they justify why they're having a conversation with me, give me their opinion. You know, I played a bit of representative basketball. Now I'm doing the same, you know, like a Jim Belushi line. You know, are you heavy, you know much about the fight game? Well, I'm the heavyweight champion of the world. That's how I feel right now. I played a bit of junior, but, you know, I could have been drafted by the Dallas Cowboys.
Does every kid have a helmet? Is that part of, like, being a kid in America? You get your helmet?
No, you don't play. When you're a kid, well, at least in my neighborhood, because it was kind of a rough neighborhood, you don't have a helmet because, you know, the rich white kids have that. You know? They've got the helmet, you know. We have a football. You know, and the kid that had the football, you allowed him to play. He was usually a terrible player, the guy that had the football, but you allowed him to play.
Yeah. It's good to see you too, Hughesy. It wouldn't be Super Bowl day without you, and it's great to see you, and it's fantastic.
Monday morning, be able to watch high-class sport from the other side of the world and, you know, away from the kids. I love it, yeah.
The MVP show that Steve Carfino is going to host on 1HD is going to be talking a lot about US sport, all US sport. I imagine, hopefully in a couple of weeks for New Orleans Saints fans, you might be spending a bit of time talking about them. It's been an unbelievable story given where this town was, where the Superdome was 5 years ago. This was the kick, Ed, that got them into the Super Bowl, clinched the NFC title for them, and what a scene it was.
It's not just about Hurricane Katrina either. This has been a very bad, downtrodden franchise for years. Never done anything, as I mentioned, first time ever in the Super Bowl. Sort of the epitome of a bad team. So you add the Hurricane Katrina layer on top of the fact that they've been terrible, and you've got a great story.
This was the scene on Bourbon Street moments before the final whistle. That was the scene about 3 or 4 minutes after it. Incredible, wasn't it?
That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, they were the Aints. I mean, we were talking about this yesterday, a couple of days ago. They weren't the Saints. They were called the Aints for so many years.
Their own fans called them the Aints.
And wore paper bags. They sort of initiated that tradition of not wanting to be seen at the game, so they put a paper bag over their head with a couple of circles and went to the game like that. That's how bad it was.
Didn't Archie Manning's son even wear a bag over his head? You know, he got you know, kids always follow what other people are doing around him. You know, his dad's the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints, and you know.
So Peyton Manning, who was the quarterback for the Colts, his father was a legend for the Saints.
About 10 years at the Saints. I don't think he ever played on a winning team.
Never had a losing season.
Never had a winning season. Grew up, stayed in New Orleans and raised his family there. Peyton and Eli, of course, his brother with the Giants, also grew up in New Orleans, played high school ball there. So it's a real interesting synergy when you've got the father who was a legendary Saint, the son coming back against him.
Legendary loser, so what does he do? He just produces. He said, look, wife, we need to put some winners together. We need some kids that get us in the Super Bowl.
Steve, it is a game of football, and that's ultimately what it's about. There's a trophy that these two teams are vying for today, and they both desperately want to win it, but there's a story overlaying this Super Bowl, and it's what happened in New Orleans 5 years ago when the greatest natural disaster hit, you know, the shores of your homeland. And how important, we're going to cross to New Orleans in a minute to assess the feeling from the streets, but you look at these scenes and you can't believe the devastation. How important is it, do you think, from a long way away, for the rebuild of New Orleans and just for the people of that city to see their team doing what it's going to be doing today?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's horrible, and I think that, you know, what happened to the city of New Orleans, they felt like they were neglected by the rest of the country. They felt like they were neglected by the government in getting aid and getting their houses rebuilt. And so this is a city that just felt, you know, overall neglected. So, you know, they rally behind one another. I think the humanity in the city really picked up, and the faith in one another really picked up. And then, you know, that kind of overflowed into their love for their team. You know, something from New Orleans, you represent it. The players that play for New Orleans represent their community, I believe, more than any team or any franchise, not just in football, but in anywhere. All those people that have given them the support that they have thrown behind their team. I think that has gotten them through a few games this year.
And the stadium was used to house a lot of the people who were displaced for a number of weeks, wasn't it?
It was ground zero for the evacuations and the refugees, so which I think is amazing too. That now that's where they won the NFC Championship a couple of weeks ago.
Well, our executive producer Dave Barham was over in New Orleans on a family holiday not that long ago. In fact, when they made it 13-zip this season, and they went to one of those evangelical churches that are famous down south that I'm sure everybody knows about, and they were praying for Drew Brees. They were praying for the New Orleans. They were singing songs about the New Orleans Saints and praying that this streak could continue, and they'd just keep on their winning ways. It's much more than a football match.
But that's certainly an appropriate use of religion, I believe.
I would have thought so. I absolutely would have thought so.
At least he had them praying for him. It wasn't like, it wasn't any voodoo going on.
Well, there's probably some of that too.
Mistreated an ex-girlfriend and she put a hex on him. Nothing like that going.
There's a little bit of that goes on the French court.
I'm going to say there's probably a few Peyton Manning dolls getting a little pin cushion action at the moment.
Just about guaranteed. And one thing you do know is that if you're not a cult, the support is going to be with New Orleans in this match. And given its proximity to Florida, you would think that a lot of Louisianans...
Say that 3 times.
Go on, is that right? Would have made the trip across the border to this game.
You would think so, although I think I read something, only 17% of the tickets actually go to fans, from what I understand. So very different from a grand final. But there's the whole who dat thing.
Can you explain that?
It's a Cajun sort of French thing, like who dat, who they think are going to beat those Saints. Right. And they make that chant. Who dat think they're going to beat them Saints. It's kind of this New Orleans sort of Creole Cajun tradition, so that's become kind of a rallying cry.
The Colts think they are, though. They're major favourites, aren't they, the Colts, like, for the bookies?
I would think so. It's the line open, not that I know, but the line was somewhere around 5.5, I think, 6-point favourite. So most people would think that the Colts would be favoured.
Well, there's a bit of translation going on when it comes to, well, we say New Orleans, but they say New Orleans.
Yeah.
We say who dat, and they're like, who dat?
yeah, I can't quite do it justice.
I know. I think if we all went to New Orleans, myself included, being from America, I think if we all went to New Orleans, we'd be saying what?
It is a great accent, though, isn't it?
It is. It's a funny one too. It's a little bit like Brooklyn almost. It's almost a strange, funky sort of hybrid accent, like nowhere else in the world. Really interesting.
We're going to take a break here from the studio, not too far away from crossing over to the States. We're going to go inside the rooms and give you some scenes from the rooms over there in Florida as we go to the break. Imagine what they're feeling right now. The biggest show on earth. It's only moments away from starting here at 10 and 1. Back with more after this.